Arun, thank you for being on the Upstream Life. The pleasure is the fact that when you meet somebody who's done PhD and has worked in some of the largest companies in the world, you know, it's fair to ask, you could have remained an employee in these companies. Why go start Articulate? That's the first question. And what is Articulate all about?
Perfect. No, Vishal, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to do this. I've seen your previous episodes, really a big fan. Articulate really started out of the need for enterprises to have some meaning coming out of the data set. Right. And as you said, of course, I was at Intel at the time, but before that was Amazon. Pretty much my entire career has been in large companies. I started at GE and research and all that. But it's very rare that you get an opportunity where the technology is near ready. It was not completely ready at the time. And the market was ready. That was most important. And the other piece was about 20 years of my training all the way up to that point. It almost felt like I was getting ready for that moment. And it just happened in terms of being ready at the intersection of all three. And it very much felt like it's an opportunity of a lifetime. You just don't get that often. You usually get a combination of two of those, very rarely all three, right? And that's really what came about. And of course, I was in a place and time and place in a company that allowed me to actually go do something like this. So I'm deeply thankful for Intel and as well as especially Pat Gelsinger personally for his championing this to be taken out. But at the same time, the timing was perfect. We actually went to our first production scale deployment a month before ChatGPT was launched. And that was November 2022. And this was when we were still incubating inside Intel. And then ChatGPT came out, and it was really the world's taken over by storm. Pretty much everybody was starting to talk about AI in a very different way. And the timing was such that we also were getting ready to go out and raise funding for this endeavor. And that was a perfect, I would say, storm, which ended up getting us the capital we needed to get out. And also, by the time we launched in January 1st of 2024, we were a fledgling company startup. We just started, but the first day of operations was revenue positive, meaning we had production customers, so we had to actually support them. So that's really how it ended up happening.
You should tell us you're solving in which space, and it's got to do with LLMs. Because I want people watching this to understand. Obviously,
totally.
We'll explain where the AI landscape is.
So if you're wondering why, totally, if you're wondering why yet another Gen AI company in a company of 28,000 companies plus, is that we are focused entirely on what we call domain-specific Gen AI. And the reason for that is we are focused on industries that have a very high barrier to entry. And the highest barrier to entry is you need to understand that particular domain. And what I mean by that is take manufacturing, energy, oil and gas, aerospace, even large-scale B2B financial services. All of these are extremely niche fields that require sometimes decades of training before human beings can be considered experts in those fields. And we are tackling those fields partly because they're all data rich. That's one. And second, in my opinion, they've been underserved over the last 20 years, where a lot of effort has gone into the consumer world, but the enterprise world, especially the large-scale industrial world, has lagged behind in terms of the technologies they use. I mean, it's a little sad to say, but even today, some of the largest plants are managed in Excel. So that just seems like
I agree with you. Although Industry 4.0 exists,
it does. It does.
We are still in a very people believe the trends, but what's happening in the market is completely different. I agree with you. So go on. You were adding.
Yeah. And the other thing also is we had personal training in a lot of these things, right? So myself, you started with that. I'm an aerospace engineer with training, spent about half my career doing largely aerospace things. And if you look at the people who actually were part of the founding team, a significant portion of them, more than 70%, were non-computer scientists. But we were 70% PhDs when we started. Today, we're roughly about 35 to 40% PhDs. But the computer science PhDs are a minority. The reason for that is we are a software company. However, we are also a deep tech company which builds deep domain-specific models. And domain-specific, what I would call intelligence, really models that think about other models as to when do you actually call these things together. And I'll just make one more point, which is very unique about us. Even when we started more than 3 years ago, starting to build this, we were firmly of the opinion that no single model can get you to your outcome. You need multiple models to work together. And it was not the prevailing wisdom at the time. In fact, we were told multiple times that we were wrong, and all these large model companies are going to take over. And you can see where the world has gone now, where even, say, somebody like Satya, after investing $15 billion in one large model, says, well, we need domain-specific models to work together. Right? And the reason for that is, in my opinion, fairly obvious. Like human beings work like that. The fields are all
Yeah,
deeply technical.
I agree. Isn't it always the
Yeah.
case when,
Yes.
if that's certainly the reason why AWS dominated the cloud versus Google.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Google
Right.
was more
And
consumer centric,
that's right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's funny
And
how Amazon, being a consumer centric company, morphed
yes.
into that AWS thing in a big way, right? I mean, I
Yes.
remember that entire change in 2005 onwards,
Right.
right?
Yes.
It's interesting. So that's so true. You read my mind. You need to have industry experts,
Yes.
right? And B2B moves slower than B2C.
Yes.
And everybody using ChatGPT, Perplexity, and all those other
Yes.
models. I
Yes.
mean, and for base level code development, the
Yes.
boilerplate code,
Yes.
that's still used like a search. You know what I mean? Can I
It
build this
is.
thing, right?
It
You
totally
agree,
is. Yes, I
right?
agree. Right, I agree.
So my question to you would be,
Yes.
thank you for being pick an industry, a use case where they can deploy Articulate and why.
Yeah. Yeah. Take manufacturing, for example, right? That's an unusual one to pick for LLMs. And the most common use case that we see is what I would call an advanced technician assistant. Okay, and the reason for that is if you take high value manufacturing industries, right? So your tooling is actually very expensive, and your technician's time is even more valuable because there are only a few that are trained to act on those tools. And if a technician makes a wrong call, both on an issue that is happening or an issue that didn't happen, both of them stop the manufacturing line. And the minute it happens, there's a ripple effect that happens with the company, right? It's not just the impact on that particular plant, it's a ripple effect across the entire thing. It's supply chain coming in, it is products going out, it has top line and bottom line impact. It's huge. That's why they're very careful about that. And even in places where there's only one language, you have a problem. The problem is like where we got brought in usually is when there's multiple languages on the same plant. Okay, and in this particular case, I'll give you an example of an auto manufacturing company where they have three languages in the same shift: English, German, and Hungarian. Now, if you take any shift in India, for example, then your language explodes, but not only that, your dialects explode. Right? So it's a mix of different things. And
Correct.
the same car being manufactured has records where people are recording things in three different languages. So their current solution was they'll translate everything to one language, common language, and translate back whenever they need. The problem is it's a propagation of errors, right? So it's actually a comedy of errors. That's really what happens. And a system like what we deployed understands the manufacturing lingo, meaning all of the acronyms that go with it. It knows that you cannot miss one number in a serial number. It's just not okay. Like so, things like that. And it also, most importantly, knows sequences. Meaning, are you in step 14 of a step 200 level process? What happened? Right? So it understands all of those nuances. And the deployment really is in line, meaning the technician is making a decision. This is flagging all of the things that were supposed to be flagged before. And by the way, they have flags. Pretty much every manufacturing environment, every industrial equipment, you have about 95% plus false positives. That's what leads a lot of these smart engineers, smart technicians to sit there and go, I can't rely on this. I have my intuition. Let me rely on my intuition, which is codified into an Excel spreadsheet, right? But this system significantly changed the game because now in high value industries, we can process 100% of all the events, flag with more than 98 or 99% certainty, only things that the instructor or the technician has to see, and then still have human input going into augment the system, meaning keep teaching the system. All right. And you think that this is a little bit of an esoteric use case only in high value industries. across the board. The reason I picked this is every slow-moving manufacturing industry that we've seen, which usually takes 10 years after a particular technology has been adopted for them to adopt it, actually going to production now.
It's interesting. I mean, all my SaaS friends watching this, okay, there's a certain level of, I mean, there's a shudder down their spine because in the old days, the SaaS companies would thrive on this, right?
That's right.
These
That's right.
tickets
Yes.
coming in. And
Yes.
it was nice at the time, subscription, obviously.
Totally.
The software as a service story is also majorly the application priced on the infrastructure that they're situated at.
Yes.
Right?
Thank
you. In this case, where you are operating,
Mhm.
obviously you use a lot of data, structured, unstructured, right? Time series data,
All of it.
right?
Yes.
My question to you is, well, how should the SaaS guys look at this? Because now a CTO will perhaps say, look, I've deployed about 50 applications in the manufacturing side. Now, probably Articulate will rationalize this for me. And then there's something called agentic AI. I want you to explain how the future architecture of this would be. Where, I mean, there is obviously these data centers, there are these applications, right? Then there are these robots working together in a manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
So Articulate structures data from all time. It looks at the infrastructure, looks at downtime perhaps.
Yeah.
Right? And probably fixes it as well. I don't know.
So
then
we today don't fix it.
data. Pardon?
That's right. Yeah. So today we don't fix the problem, right? So we don't act. The reason for that is, first of all, these systems have to get to that level of autonomy. They're not there.
Yes.
And second, you need human beings to still teach the systems to make sure that you know which ones to automate, and which ones to not let run autonomously, right? That's the difference. But from the perspective of, say, CTOs, for me, it's a massive opportunity. And the reason, say, for example, a company like Articulate exists is you have already invested in a massive amount of data infrastructure, no matter which industry you're in. You also invested significantly in your application stack. Like whether you're in manufacturing, oil and gas, energy, aviation, large scale B2B, financial services, all of it. If you notice, I haven't mentioned something like retail, partly because retail, the margins are too small. They'll eventually get there, but it's not an industry we focus in. But the opportunity is right. But the opportunity for the CTO really is to say, look, it always used to be that let me clean my data. There's a massive effort that goes into that. Let me structure it into whatever I need to structure it into before I go build applications. The world is already moved to don't worry about what your data structure is. Don't worry about a lot of those things, which, by the way, is a strange thing to say because an entire data warehousing industry exists just for that. I'm not saying that industry goes away. You still need your systems of record. However, your systems of record no longer need to be completely clean. All of your data warehouses that are completely messy, and I kind of call data lakes data swamps. They
are swamps. Very difficult to navigate.
Exactly. Right. So those things can now immediately start giving you value. Right. I mean, for example, we walk into any industry and then the first 70 or 80% of the value is obtained without changing the data pipelines, without changing anything in their data sources. And in most cases, without changing anything on their application stack. We are just plug in right in between, right? That, in my opinion, is a huge opportunity. The risk is
powerful. It is powerful.
Yes.
See, I look at manufacturing guys. I look at the technicians there.
Yes.
And they need insights, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure that, how do you ingest Articulate into the system? Let's start there.
That's right. Yeah. So the way we architected the system is to make sure that it doesn't go and displace anything else, right? The reason for that is if I go in and say, look, whatever data warehousing you use, like get that out, put me in, and then now I'm the new system of record. That's really how the Snowflakes and the Databricks of the world grew. But then that just won't fly. People have invested a lot. It's 10 plus years of existing hardened code, right? That's one thing. What we do is we have a very clear view of saying, look, data does not move, meaning it does not move from one location to another location for storage. It only moves for processing. So it's just in flight, you process it, even if you store it, it's temporary and it moves on. That's number one. The only, I would say, hard requirement that we have are GPUs. So you need to have GPUs if you're deploying us locally. A lot of folks used to say that they have to only start locally, but now they're starting to say, well, we'll start in the cloud and then move local later. So it's really a availability of GPU thing. But even there, because we are vertically integrated, we are extremely optimized to run the right size models for the right use cases. So I want to be careful about that because domain specific to a lot of people means small language models. That's not what I'm saying. Domain specific for us means build the largest model possible for the data that you actually have. If your data supports it, for example, if you're in the pharma world, your data supports building models larger than the largest models out there. They have more data than the entire internet. Whereas if you go to something niche like, say, aerospace manufacturing, there's not that much data in the world. You can go get proprietary information to go do it, but your models have to be commensurate with the size of the data set that's coming in. That's number one. But the second thing most people forget is you need the models to be as big as what your tasks are going to be. If you want the same model to write a poem for a fifth grader and then interpret finance documents, sure, have the largest models. But if all you want the model to do is look at the output of manufacturing equipment and then say, tell you whether there's a fault or not, that's a highly narrow use case.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
interesting. I want to bring a little bit of history because I've been covering manufacturing for so long, Arun. I remember in the old days, they would say that, okay, we can figure out when the robot in the plant will actually, what was it called?
Yes.
Predictive maintenance?
Yeah,
Predictive
it went from
analysis?
predictive maintenance to prescriptive maintenance, so
Correct.
predictive analytics,
Correct.
all of that. Yes.
So if people are watching this podcast, they
Yes.
must understand at the back end, how did the infrastructure layer work at that time?
Yes.
It was obviously people moved certain workloads to the cloud.
Yes.
But in a Gen AI use case, because they're large language models, how would the interaction work? Would it still be like a software as a service predictive analysis kind of tool,
Yeah.
or is it completely different?
So there's two levels of infrastructure, right? So one is the traditional way of thinking about infrastructure, which is, look, there is actual compute required where the compute runs. The significant shift between the traditional way and today is you still need a large quantity of GPUs to run these Gen AI driven workflows. So that's the real blocker. Most manufacturing sites I know don't have that. So you will have to go someplace to do that. But over the next 5 years, you're going to see lots of places with GPU capability that is shifting closer to the edge as well, right? You'll do that. But the bigger shift is the infrastructure around people. Because in the traditional way of doing predictive maintenance in manufacturing or even anywhere, supply chain or anywhere else, you need a group of data scientists, not only to build your models, meaning they'll go look at all this data, they'll clean it up, then they'll say, okay, these are the features I want to use, then build the model with the features, deploy it, and after deploying, monitor the model because it kind of, I mean, I have an amendment to Box's statement, which is all models are wrong, some are useful, but then for a small period of time. Right, so that's my amendment, which is for a short period of time, because it doesn't matter how big a model you build, how complicated or how efficient a model you build, unless it's grounded on something bigger than just the correlations that you're building, the models will decay. So you need to constantly keep updating those models. And it used to be the data science teams that has to update the models. And the reason why 90% of data science projects sat on shelves or never got to production was just that. There's not enough data scientists in the world to transfer them. The fundamental shift is, and I'm not saying we don't need data scientists anymore. However, the kind of work data scientists do have fundamentally shifted. Meaning, I don't need to go sit and look at the data manually to figure out what's wrong with it. 99% of it can be automated through LLMs. Because it's not just LLMs, it's LLMs driving tools that, say, a data scientist created that can go look at data sets at volume that no data scientist can look at. Right? That's one thing. The other piece is they can watch themselves. You can have other models watching drifts and other things so that the update becomes much easier, to the point where what you're seeing now is people who have no experience in AI, no training in data science, even in the traditional sense of the word, can take their data, put it into something even as simple as ChatGPT and start asking questions. It's a fundamental shift. It was like not having Excel and having Excel. This is about 100 times better. Right.
These are shifts, Harun. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my next thought was just this, one is obviously it'll increase labor productivity,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
I certainly also think in a completely automated plant, the agents can talk to each other and probably, save on downtime costs themselves, right? You'd
So
probably. I'm
the
not
you
saying
asked
there's no
another,
human
yeah.
there. Probably there'll be less. There'll probably
Yes.
be one or two humans saying, okay, this is what the
Yes.
machine says in terms of, you know, the root cause analysis. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know if
Yeah.
that is a better way to
So
put it,
got it.
right?
So two things I'll say, right? So you asked a question about agents. I forgot to answer that. I'll answer
Yeah.
that. But then also, I'm an optimist, and I'm eternally optimistic about technologies actually making the human condition better, right? Yes, there will be disruption, but I'll tell you why I still feel very optimistic about this. Agents, right? So the simple definition of agents is really a model combined with a tool with a set of prompts that drive the model to work with the tool, right? In that's the trifecta that makes an agent. Now you can have multiple tools connected to a model. You can sometimes have multiple models connected to multiple tools. You might have a decision layer that decides which model to call when and all that. But really, it's only that trifecta. It is model, tools, and prompts that drive how to go do that. And the reason why they're cool is you don't have to define rules. All you have to say is, look, say, for example, you want to build a weather modeling model or an agent. You say, look, you are a weather analyst. And then whenever somebody asks a question about weather, you make sure that you use this tool, which is a web search tool. That's all you say. And you can even say, look, you are a helpful assistant, however you want to do that. The nice thing is when somebody asks a question, what's the weather in Bangalore? It knows that Bangalore is a city. So the LLM knows it will pick up that and then it will go do a web search for current weather in Bangalore. And then say it picks up the fact that it's raining. It would then go interpret from 5 or 6 different sites, come back with an answer which is meaningful for the human. And the reason why that's now called an agent is now you're given a model agency to go search, go do something on your behalf and come back and do that. It's still not acting, but you can still go. Like, for example, you can go to a browser that is AI enabled and then you can go book a ticket and all that. Now, what this really frees us from is do I really want to go to Google search and do that anymore? I mean, I'm one of those guys who like has not done Google search in months. The reason is like I kind of become lazy, right? I mean, I would rather have a processed output rather than going and clicking 3 links. Now, what used to be delightful has become table stakes. That's where things are going to the point where have I become more dumb? Probably not. But has it freed me from things that are repetitive? Absolutely. So that's why I feel like super optimistic
Got
about
it.
this.
Got it. My question
Yeah.
is also a lot of the founders, I mean, forget the founders, even $100 million companies, they think integrating ChatGPT into their processes
Yes.
is a solution.
Hmm.
Um, you're right, you can't use this saying that, okay, I've integrated a tool, let my technicians in the organization figure it out. Let's say I've got a healthcare client, okay?
Yeah.
They want to deploy Gen AI, of course. I mean, with health plans, of
Hmm.
course, to ensure that the nurses tell the doctors that yes, this
Yes.
patient is good for a
Yes.
surgery or not. You know how health plans work in the US,
Yeah.
very complex,
Mm.
lot of time, paper, right? Uh, this match that you have to make, right? I mean, where does the buying habit go? What is the buying habit? I'm also saying, is ChatGPT a threat to you, or I mean, it's just how do how do
Yeah.
entrepreneurs think about Articulate when you do the sell?
Got it.
They typically throw in questions from the marketing side. I'm sure the marketing guys would like to have Articulate within their organization.
Yeah.
But then this chat GPT, oh, we'll use a chat GPT, but that still requires tooling, right, to understand the organization structure,
It does.
right?
It does.
I
So
wanted your thoughts on the selling habits of yours in the sense of how does a CTO buy from you and
yes,
how does the business buy into you?
got it.
And then making a compelling sell that, look, ChatGPT is like a chassis of a car. You got to still build on top of this.
Yes.
It no-
So I'll make two analogies, right? So
Yes.
first of all, like you can say, for example, hire high school kids and then give them textbooks and say, look, all the answers are in this textbook. I will ask you a question and I will hand you a textbook, and then you can go get me an answer. Sure, they'll be doing that very efficiently, probably fairly cheaply. You can hire an engineer with 20 years of experience who's gone through the field, and you ask the same questions. The engineer might still refer to the same textbooks and give you the same answer. Who would you hire? The answer is actually fairly slam dunk clean. Like if it's a high value use case, you want the engineer, right? We are in the business of supplying engineers. We are not in the business of supplying high school students. Very simple. That's number one. However, the reason like people actually come to us is there are really four reasons. The first one is accuracy. So you can get to something very simple anywhere, any of these tools, whether you're using ChatGPT or Anthropic or Perplexity or any of those tools, 85, 90% of the time they get things right. Okay, and that is when you give them documents. For example, Perplexity has 25 document limit. Like you go to the enterprise version, maybe they have 2,000 documents, whatever that is. But every enterprise we go to, like small, medium, large, I mean, even from medium to large, they have tens of thousands to millions of documents. And they are
And
all
50-year data, 100-year data. You go to
100-year data.
You go to
Yes.
Volkswagen one plant, the one in
Yes.
Wolfsburg.
Yeah.
That have so much data there.
There's data at least for 60, 65 years from just that one plant alone, right? And so you need to be able to parse through all that, but in an efficient way, be able to not only get the data, but also present it to you, right? So that's important. But the accuracy is number one, right? So how do you make sure that in most of the industries, being at 85 to 90% is not good enough? In fact, you need to be 95 and above to even play. And when you are 95 and above, you still have to say why you made a decision. You need to have provenance, you need to have specificity, and you need to be repeatable every single time. None of that come with any of the consumer tools, right? So accuracy is number one. The second one is, of course, I mentioned scale, which is like our smallest deployment is about 10,000 to 20,000 documents, right? There's just no solution on the
How
planet.
tough is it for you when you're selling all this, Arun? I mean, I'm sure people get it, but what? Seriously, man. I mean, I'm not saying that people are not thinking through this, but I've been to so many conferences where people don't talk this at all. They just say AI is going to do greater things for us, better things for us.
Yes.
But everybody is in a fix when in the deployment phase. For example,
Yes.
you said there can be 10,000 plus documents from one center alone.
Yes.
Are we going to tool it for that knowledge? How does that old knowledge become new knowledge, right? You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah, and not only that, right? So like we're seeing time and again people spending millions of dollars on pilots and POCs and being stuck. And in fact, our best customers are folks who already done all that by themselves and then know when we go in and say, these are the things. In fact, the questions I get asked is, how do you know exactly what happened to us? Well, it's just how people end up getting stuck. I wouldn't say that everybody is quite there yet. I would say even now, less than 5% of the market is there, which is really what gives me a ton of hope because we are still in very, very early days. And if you look at the adoption curves, the industries that I would have picked a year ago to be the slowest moving are the folks who are fastest moving. The reason for that is they see the unlock. They've traditionally not moved. And the example I'll give you is when India went from landlines to GSM. It almost completely skipped CDMA.
Good like that, yeah.
Just like that, they could
There was
leapfrog.
CDMA phones only for 2 years.
2 years.
Probably 3 to 5, maybe or 4 to 6, right?
Yes. And they completely switched, right? Whereas if you look at the Western world, they kind of like hobbled along from CDMA to GSM because of all the investments they made. A lot of the industries we see are like that, right? So they can leapfrog. That's one. That again gives me hope. And for the CTOs and even the VCs that you talk to a lot, the hope really is that we are in very, very early days. The notion that somehow all of these large model companies will take over everybody, well, in the stack, if you look at it, the foundation model companies, they've kind of solidified, right? They've kind of become one. There's really only 3, in my opinion, maybe a few more.
Yes.
But then that's because you need at least $5 to $10 billion to go play in that world. And even if you do, there's no differentiation.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a general purpose model. The model, the layer above that is what I call domain specific models. That's wide open. It's like people are doing it. Yeah.
Makes so much sense now.
And then you have middleware. Then you have applications. They're all evolving.
It is interesting. The next time we're in Bangalore, we are going to talk about that evolution because, I saw the ERP versus CRM.
Yeah.
I saw the way the storage wars went.
Yeah.
Right. And then we had the big data kind of play that
Yes.
happened, and then
Yes.
now everyone speaks AI. And I'm glad I think this, would you call it a war of say that, okay, on the B2C world where everybody uses a GPT and a Perplexity for whatever research or just use it like a
Yeah.
search, they sometimes use it like a search and it's become a trend kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
you were right. I mean, CTOs need to think just beyond that, just because they're able to write a good copy or generate a good
That's right.
design for your PPT. There's a lot more to be thought through, correct?
Yeah. So the other thing I'll also mention, right? So one is a cautionary one, which is you can delegate work. You cannot delegate thought. That has to be a very careful thing because what we're seeing increasingly, and by the way, we experiment on ourselves a lot. That you see two things behind me, like Code 42 is our way of experimenting on ourselves because if we can't deploy these technologies for us to be building faster, we can't really be going and selling. And I have to say, we don't always succeed because we constantly fall into our own traps of saying, look, I'll kind of delegate my thinking. And then you go in and ask an engineer, going, wait a minute, why did you write this piece of code? And if they're not able to explain, that code doesn't pass a pull request, right? And I mean, like these are not, they're very smart
Yeah.
people. It's just that in whatever they caught up with time constraints or whatever it is, it's very easy to delegate thought. So that's
Yeah.
really the caution I would make, and especially in complex industries, you cannot
Yeah.
delegate thought,
Okay,
right?
Arun, I mean, there is this feeling of, when there's a technology out there and you want to move at speed and
Yeah.
you got a selling point. How difficult is it for you when there are so many people who launch the same thing with half as
Yes.
much perhaps
Yes.
thought,
Yes.
and
Yes.
are able to raise more money and then, and then
Yes.
price you off? I don't know. I mean, how do you
So,
handle that kind of a
so
situation?
the main thing that we have to handle is noise, is what you're referring to, which is everybody claims they do the exact same thing that everybody else does, right? So it doesn't matter whether they do it or not. The way we tackle that is by keeping our what I would call gumption, which is, look, it doesn't matter whether somebody believes in the technology we're going after or not, but the proof for what we are working on is the solution that we're putting up. Meaning, can you solve a problem that cannot be solved with the perplexities and the chat GPTs of the world today? That's really the bar you're going after. If you
Absolutely.
can, then you kind of worked against yourself because somebody else is going to come in and say you have to do that, right? So that is the first bar. The second one is we, like by design, go after hard problems, which might seem counterintuitive, which is like, why are you not going after low-hanging fruit? The reason for that is when you have such capital-rich markets, such capital-rich environments where, frankly, like if you have the right connections, you can raise money with a PowerPoint. You cannot stand the test of time. So if you want to stand the test of time, you have to go after the hard problems. That's really how we started. In fact, the first problem we solved was 2.8 million documents.
Is that, I mean, a lot of people in your locale, I mean, the Bay Area, would say call it first principles because that's where it's
Cool.
evolved, although it's a universal thing. And now,
Yes.
is that what you have to always solve for? That break it down, saying how does a company think and whether I mean, because you have to showcase to them that if you
So
solve it for yourself, it'll work for them.
that's part of it.
Is that how you,
See,
is that how
that's
you start?
how. So that is part of it, right? Because we kind of didn't develop any technology that was not required for us to be solving the problem that we had right in front of us. And if we could have solved it going to any one of these other models, we would have. Like it's just incredibly hard to not do that, right? That's one. The other thing that we do is we have to fight the urge to do exactly what everybody else is doing. And I mean, customers know intuitively what they want. However, they do not know what to ask for. I'll give you the, I mean, this is fairly well known in product management, which is you like we are in the business of inventing automobiles in a world where automobiles have never been seen. So if you go ask a customer, they're going to ask for faster horses and
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
and that's really what you need to guard against, and we it's not I wouldn't say we got it cracked. It's just that we have to guard against it every single time. So
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Your analogy of faster horses makes sense if you look at the history of cars. American versus Japanese. You see, the Japanese won that war.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, think of, say, just-in-time manufacturing, just think of quality, right? I think it was a Steve Jobs quote from somewhere saying, look, the companies out of one country which never talk about quality are Japanese companies. They never have to talk about it because that's who they are. And it is that innate capability that you need to be able to bring out, which is, I would say, the hardest part of doing this, right? Because when every day
Yeah.
we wake up and somebody announces something that takes away your significant differentiator, you need to constantly keep moving.
And
This is, that's the reason, when I do these things, I want to talk forever. But because we're doing it online, I have to keep it so short and concise.
Yes. No.
Let's get into the VC landscape, okay?
Yes.
So there's money, of course. There's
Yes.
connections, money, connections, they're all there.
Yes.
How do you handle that landscape at this point of time? Obviously, you've set out the differentiation in this podcast. Where does it take you in terms of saying, okay, people betting on you? I think you've done a series there, haven't you? You've done
So
one round.
we launched, we did one round, and we were fortunate that we were incubated, and then we did one round, and we were also fortunate to be revenue positive. So we are okay. I'm not saying we're cash flow positive, but we are revenue positive, right? So we are there. We'll do the next round in short order because we are basically scaling. We're seeing business growing, and we're also international. So we're a small enough outfit, but we are in the US. We are scaling to LATAM and a significant portions of Asia, and we're also scaling to starting to scale in Europe. That's really where the fundraising comes in. The capital, I would say, deeply thankful for the community for being supportive, but also this is a community that supports way out things, right? I mean, they're okay with 90% failure, right? That's one thing. The other thing is the community also has a lot of follower mentality.
Yeah, you read my mind. There's a lot of, it's a horse racing, right?
Yes.
There'll be I mean, look at it. I'm sure in the Bay Area itself, on the Valley in
Yes.
general,
Yes.
there'll be people trying to bet on horses like this. Right?
Totally.
It's similar, right?
Totally.
And you can see that within your own friends. Oh, my friends there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I'm saying it's a good thing. Yes, they're trying to bet on the future, but I'm saying
Yes.
that's the noise, right? I mean, even within the VC community, there's the noise.
It is.
I don't know how they handle it seriously. I need to bring somebody with you once and talk about the funding ecosystem.
Absolutely. I can maybe 5 years from now, I might have a different perspective, just going through it multiple times.
Correct.
But then being in a startup feels like you are in a constant fundraise all the time. So that is part of the story. And being in a startup, you kind of get a little immune to rejections, right? So that's just part of life. You keep going and doing that. But the amount of groupthink is really massive.
It is massive and it catches a cold all over the world, right?
Yes, and it sneezes, and yes, that's really what happens. However, people are still very bullish, I would say, in the US and even other parts of Asia. With India, you might correct me, like at least from my conversations with a few folks there seems to be a self-induced ceiling. Okay, I'll tell you my point of view because in my small sampling, the point of view is, look, we don't have GPUs. We can't really build any of these large models. We can't like go play in that area. Therefore, we will go look at small things. In my opinion, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
Right?
but they can get GPUs on the go. I mean, you can.
Now they can. No, now they can. But it's the scale of thinking, right? So it is very, very different.
Yeah, I could agree more.
And I'll tell you one of my pet peeves, being an aerospace engineer, hearing this really ticks me off, which is, ISRO launched stuff to Mars with 1/10,000th of the budget.
Yeah.
Right? I'm deeply proud of ISRO, deeply proud of what they're able to do. But they didn't say they will reach the treetop. Their mission was to go to Mars, and they got to Mars. They figured out how to do that. I would vote anybody who says, look, I'll go to the Statistical Society of India or Indian Mathematical Association and come up with algorithms that make sure that you don't need all these compute. That I respect. But saying that you don't need large models, India can only build small models, there's several, like say, like stalwarts of technology which went out and said that, which frankly, I think we have to dig ourselves out of.
Uh,
Right.
I would agree with you on many levels. The narrative, it's not about, okay, let's correct ourselves here because people think, oh, so you want us to pay more, is it?
No,
That's
not
the
at
view
all.
that they get into. You get what I'm saying?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. What I mean is take bolder risks, right? And that doesn't mean that you have to spend more, right? It just I think the boldness of ideas is not about spending. It's about how big can you think, right? It's really that. And I mean, this is just my very limited view of the world, talking to only a few people there,
No,
but I didn't see that openness.
I'll tell you the other thing that I would think on why they would do it. If they would do it simply because they don't have to go sign up with many software companies. They
Totally.
just do it because they have enough now, and they'll say, okay, can this manage it for us?
Yeah.
And they'll be okay with it if it's cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Look at India and the automobile ecosystem. I mean, the way we look at cars
Just
that are really not safe. You know what I mean? If you look
yes.
at the same car in America
Yes.
or in Europe, would have to
Yes.
face a lot of tests,
So
And I don't know. Here, they'll probably. I mean, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. And you're right. I agree. Tend to agree with you there in many levels because if you've got, they'd use the analogy saying, we went to Mars with the cheapest price, or the cheapest cost.
but we
Or
still
we
went to
also call it
Mars.
frugal
Yes.
engineering. Frugal engineering
True.
doesn't necessarily mean it cutting corners, correct?
No, it's not. And it's actually it's about ingenuity, and you cannot get that cheaply. You have to go through it. And what I mean cheap is not just spending money. You like need to have the audacity to think big. Like, and when a founder comes out and is actually bold enough to do that, supporting them is critical, right? And it's like today, anybody saying, "Look, I want to raise $200 million to go build my own
Okay,
LLMs," they're wasting their time. That's not what I mean.
correct.
It is about saying, don't just say all we will do is applications.
Okay. Okay, I want to
Right.
ask you a question. Maybe there is an analogy here or a correlation. When the cloud wars happened, everybody said no cloud, no cloud. It has to be on-premise, on-premise. And then they
Yes.
started building their own hybrids and triplets.
Yes.
One of the largest company in the world
Yes.
calls it triplet model, hybridized, right?
Uh-huh.
How do
Yes.
you see that in the AI space? Will it become similar?
Yeah, so it's actually very similar, and I've already seen the shift happen, right? So, for example, early 2024, like even into like late 2024, it was very clear. No large enterprise wanted to hit a model outside. They're like, oh, this is a model outside. I can't send any of my data out. Even now, they don't send the data out. However, everybody has gone and created like a contract with their own favorite cloud provider. Like if you're with AWS, you use Anthropic. If you're with Azure, you're using OpenAI or other models even now. If Google,
Absolutely.
you're using Google. So somehow that strangely seems safe because the cloud is now safe, right? So that's how that's expanded quite a bit. And that's why when we started, we didn't even have a consumption-based SaaS model, right? So you can subscribe to our product, but then it runs inside your environment. Then more and more customers started asking, can I subscribe? Like, can I just do a SaaS model? We're like, okay, that's like very easy for us to add on. And that's the fastest growing business segment for us. So that's already
Yeah,
happened, in my opinion.
it's crazy, isn't it? I certainly think that I would like to see more companies like yours in the Indian enterprise space because the SaaS guys would always tell me that India is not the right place to sell SaaS. And if you look at their revenues over a period of last 10 years, India would hardly be 3% or 4% or
True,
maybe less, right?
true. But
I don't
then
know in this AI space, how would it be? You have to tell me.
you can see what based on what OpenAI is doing, right? So they went from saying, "Oh, India, don't bother building a model," to them actually opening their like one of the largest offices there because it's the second largest customer base for them,
I'll tell
right?
you, I have another analogy, Arun. If you look at the West is aging and the East, the Far East is also
Yes,
aging.
yes,
They launch India-based stuff, especially on the internet. I mean,
yeah,
if you look at the social media sector,
yes,
all the video collaterals from the
yes,
consumption
yes,
space are all
yes,
are all related to India because we have the largest number of consumers. People just get
Sure.
online and watch,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And analogy is ChatGPT will have the largest customer base in the Indian ecosystem, and if they
Well,
put it on,
it pretty much does. It already has, because now if you look at what happened right after OpenAI announced it, like Google made it free, Anthropic is coming in. I'm thrilled because now you actually get more users. But here is the caution there also, because I've written about this extensively in multiple things. This is just my personal like interest. A lot of these models, in fact, all of them, all of these models have a deeply, deeply Western rooted value system. Now you try asking questions that are like, basically you're trying to get the education system for a generation revamped, because everybody's going to go ask questions to the same system. In fact, my plea to the government has always been, and they've actually moved quite well, is look, you need to have models that understand the heritage. Good or bad, doesn't matter. I'm not saying heritage is always good. There is good and there is not so good.
let's call it out. I mean,
Yeah.
when if you see the geopolitical landscape trying to protect heritage, especially on the Western side,
Yeah.
why can't the East or why can't India do
Yes.
it? You raised a valid point here.
Yeah, and not only that, it's also, I mean, like, even if you never were told that. I mean, when I was in India, maybe I heard Vasudeva Kudumbakam once or twice, but I never internalized it. But the way we grew up, we never think about, okay, it's a lot about live and let live. It's a lot about, look, I don't have any interest in your stuff. I'm fine living my life. Of course, that doesn't mean I won't defend what is mine, but then I really don't have any interest in conquering you.
That is the heritage, yes. A
Yes.
lot of people don't understand this, but that
No.
is the truth of it, yeah.
Yes. And that, I mean, it doesn't matter like what's your background, where you come. It's like, it's remarkable. Kids who grew up in that era have that kind of background. I'm not sure if you let a lot of these models without having some kind of heritage built into it, you're going to see a lot of echo chambers building.
I said this 20 years ago that a little bit of sociology is important for all technology.
Absolutely.
Didn't happen. I think the good thing is the Google Translate happened, which is nice to an extent,
Yes.
right? But you are still right because the heritage part of it is off the window for some reason.
Off the window, completely.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's something that we have to correct, and I think that will come up as well. It's one of the projects I've been working on. We'll take it. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because when you deliver something, say, in a German factory,
Yes.
it has to have that heritage.
Totally.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, the processes are completely different in each of these places that I've traveled to, right? Germany.
I'll give you a specific example, right? So we have customers in Korea and in Japan. So we delivered one of the applications as a pilot to a refinery in Korea. They said, well, the folks in the refinery had called in, we were in Seoul, and they're like, okay, the answers are right. Okay. But then I could see that they're not really that happy. So I like, what happened? They're like, well, the answers are right, but they're very rude. I'm like, I have no means of knowing that. All we verified was accuracy. But then the cultural nuances of how to answer that. I mean, like, for example, in a language like Hindi, like you go up versus tum, big difference. And how the model responds.
Tamil, let's say it in Tamil or Telugu. I mean,
so Telugu or Kannada or anything, right? So you, like the nuance is lost completely. And this is just between languages. Imagine between regions. Like you go from Chennai to, like, say, Coimbatore, completely different Tamil. Like you go from Bangalore.
Coimbatore, very respectful.
Yes, exactly, right? And
you go to Bangalore, very broken Tamil. I mean, I don't know, very colloquial Tamil, and Chennai is also equally bad.
Equally bad, right? So it's just that. Or you go from Bangalore to, say, northern Karnataka or something. The Kannada is very different.
I think, oh man, don't even get me started there. That's a whole different subject. I don't know. It's beautiful, right? You need to.
Yes.
I hope people watching this, especially the kids who are going to work. I want to get into how's hiring for you quickly, because the kids getting in, they hear about all these again, like in the old days, people working in the services industry came into the startup world only because there was a lot of funding, and they joined companies based on funding and the media hype.
Yes.
Right? How tough is it for you as a founder between the hiring and the hiring? Hype and the hiring.
Hiring, yes. So I would say hiring is one of the hardest things for us, both from like the amount of time it takes and all that. Our conversion rates are typically roughly 1 is to 140, 150. So it's much higher than what it's supposed to be, partly because of the hype that you're talking about, because there's no resume where we see that's not exactly tuned for the job description we put out. Like almost identical, like whatever we ask, the person has done. So we need to go introspect second levels. And the thing about geographies is we've like so in the US it's hard enough, and especially in the Bay Area it's close to impossible, right? There's just so much competition for talent. So we do go to other countries where there's a lot more talent. India has been our one of the toughest markets to hire, partly because of what you said, which is people are very brand conscious. That's number one. But for the students, yeah, right. But for the
I
students
can
out there,
relate to that on many
yes.
levels. I agree.
Yes, right. But for the students out there, what I would say is this is a moment in time where if you can demonstrate that you can think, not exactly where you went to school, none of that. If you can think and if you can introspect, we value that a lot more than what school you graduated from. Right. And that's important because like knowing something alone is no longer even a basic requirement. Knowing how to get stuff done, big difference. But at the same time, we are seeing so many people go in and go have like I mean, I've had these interviews where people have something like an AI system helping them. I said, no problem. Like you don't have to hide it. Keep it wherever you are. They're like, no, no, I'm not using anything. It's okay. I know you're using something. Let's have the interview. Let's see what you can do. Because I can ask questions that forces them to think.
It's
And if
hard.
and if they can
Hard.
think with the system, no problem. Right? That's a solution we want anyway.
So,
So that's what it is.
right, from a writer's perspective, it's perspective. I mean,
Yes.
you want perspective.
Totally, right? And it's that is a lot more valuable. In many ways, I feel like legitimately a lot of creators felt betrayed, right? Because their
Yep.
content is
No,
taken into all of these. Same
you're
thing.
looking at
Yeah,
me. Yeah,
exactly, right?
hard, man.
However, after a while, you stand out because you actually put in the time, you put in the effort, you put in your originality. That's what we call hyper personalization, which is really what is going to make a difference.
You know, it's
Now,
interesting since I love history as well, and a lot of people can chat GPT the history,
yeah,
but you know, it doesn't explain, for example, the geopolitical arguments that took place in detail.
Yeah.
It'll just give,
yeah,
yeah, this happened, this happened, this happened, and there were several, and it then adds in a line saying there are several more complexities for
Yes.
which you
Yeah.
have to do more research. People forget that. They
Totally.
just copy, click, and say, okay, here's it. Here's it.
Yes. Yeah. So you're going to see a lot more of that happening, right? Because the people who think, the people who can introspect will separate from the crowd very, very quickly because the crowd has risen. Right now, it's kind of bumpy because everybody is kind of like at the same level.
I'd recommend people to, I mean, because obviously we all like music. I mean, we all grew up with Eli Raja perhaps and A.R. Rahman as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
Uh, what people don't realize is these guys put in the effort and the time.
Of course. Of
Do you
course.
agree? Huh?
Yes. Totally.
It's
Totally.
I mean, the AI thing would be another person in the room. Maybe there is an entire generation would probably like it on the B2C side, but if you do it in the B2B world, it's collapse.
So the thing I also see
You agree
is
with what I'm saying?
I'm agreeing. So like if people continue to do the jobs the way they do today, they are basically inviting extinction. However, if they continue to adapt with the tools, they would be a lot more valuable both to the company and to themselves. Right? It's just, I mean, the way the law of economics doesn't work where you say, okay, I double my productivity, I keep my total production constant. It doesn't work that way. The whole thing is if you double my productivity, my demand increases to 3x, right? But you need to double your productivity.
Arun, on that note, I want to just ask you quick thoughts on whatever you're reading. It could be anything, technical stuff. Please let me know what you're reading This is basically for the guys who perhaps want to join you and want to work with you. Maybe also people who want to partner with you. Some recommendation, either it can be on AI or you're reading anything else. Again, perspective is very important. People
Yes.
just don't stop saying, "Hey, why you?"
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's
So
very
on
annoying when somebody says you're not a brand yet.
I've gotten used to it. But it's especially striking after coming from very large brand name companies, right? So that's one thing. But in
It
terms of
happens
reading, right?
as well. I agree with you. I mean,
Yes,
when you start up, you're
yes.
actually starting from zero. Yeah.
Yes, very much. So from reading perspective, I actually have some suggestions for AI, especially when people are going in and doing it. Like there's no shortage of articles out there about hype, this, that, another thing, and all that. But if you really want to understand things that are going on, right? So I'll suggest two authors. One is Sebastian Raka. So he's a professor, but he's also written a few books about how do these models actually work from an intuitive standpoint, even if you keep aside the coding side, because if you are a coder you can actually go do that and get a lot out of his books. But even if all you read are the introductions that he posts in his blogs, they're extremely valuable because it helps you intuitively understand a lot of these things, right? It helps you separate out hype versus reality, right? So that's one thing. The other person I watch quite a bit is, say, Jay Alarmer, who's like done a lot of visually explaining these things. The reason for that is, unless you can draw something out, you can visually explain it. Like you're just spewing like buzzwords. You need to have a little bit more sense, and that takes time, by the way. You can ask it to explain, but you still need to understand. That is one side of the
No,
story.
I'll put these in the description. Sebastian Raka and Harmer,
Yes,
Miss Harmer,
yes,
right?
yes,
The
yes.
first name
I'll
being
give you the links. Yes. Jay Alarmer. Jay Alarmer. So
okay.
he's done the visual description of Transformers and a lot of those things. They are
Can a historian like me read it as well? Because I love tech,
absolutely.
but also
That's why I
understand.
mentioned it, right? That's why I mentioned it. They do have a lot of code and math, but you can ignore that completely and still get a lot out of what they're writing. Right? That's the important pieces
I
of it.
look forward to reading those, and I'll put
Yes,
this in the description. So all the
absolutely.
best to you in the
Thank you.
coming months, and obviously we're going to meet soon as you come to Bangalore and set up office.
Absolutely. Look forward to that. Yes.
And I really wish, I mean, a lot of my friends at Bay Area, I really wish that they do very well and they're very kind. I'll be very honest with you. When I came to the US about 17 times, because that was the pace of change, right? 2015 to 2019, I came there 17 times. And the
Okay.
folks at Bay Area, they make things happen. They're connected to people. They're
Yeah.
ready to come have coffee with you. There is so much
Yeah.
ideation.
Yeah.
And I wish people in the USA realize that should never die. And
Oh, it's a place to
infectious,
be
right?
if you ask me. So when if you're an entrepreneur, it's a very different energy. And of course, next time you're here, please let me know. Would love to have a coffee or a lunch or a dinner with you. So definitely,
No, that's very
absolutely,
sweet of you.
yes,
And to you, Arun, and Articulate, all the
yes,
best. And guys, you will meet Arun again. This is just, we had to do it because he's in the US and I'm here.
yeah,
And we're going to talk more in depth. We're probably going into the technicalities, probably in, say, how does a marketing company use LLM, for example, in the future?
totally,
We could
totally.
probably talk about that as well. And thank you so much. And guys, if you got this far, please like and subscribe. Otherwise, you can watch the short clips that I put out, the goldfish memory clips that I put up, actually 15, 20
Perfect.
seconds on my YouTube channel. Thank you, Arun. This has been wonderful.
Vishal, thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.